DCP Player free. Get it now from digital.net.au.
Welcome everybody. My name is Brian McKay. I'm Executive Vice President of Production Operations at Warner Brothers. Happy you could all come. We have an exciting program for you. My wife wonders about me sometimes, but I do find DCDC very exciting. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll all agree with me about how exciting it is. So I'm going to introduce our exciting and distinguished panel for this event. So here to my left, on the left side of the dais, is Randy Blotky, CEO of Digital Cinema Distribution Coalition, or DCDC. Next to him is Tim Warner, CEO of Cinemark. Then we have Fred Medina, EVP and Managing Director of Latin America, BBC Worldwide. Then we have Noah Bergman, Vice President, Content Services for Universal Pictures Distribution. Next to him is Kelly O'Connor, Senior Vice President of Exhibitor and Marketing Services for Warner Brothers. And finally, Ron Krueger II, COO of Southern Theatres. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with each panel member is going to give a brief presentation on an aspect of DCDC and how it impacts them, and then we're going to have opportunity for Q&A at the end. So we're going to start with Randy Blotky, who's going to give us a further overview of DCDC.
Good afternoon. Am I live? No, I'm live. Thank you. Is the clicker working? There we go. Had to get in the line. Okay, so you've seen the video, so you basically know the guts of how DCDC works. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the background and sort of where it sits at this transformational time, or what I think, anyway, is a transformational time in the history of the entertainment industry. First of all, it's pretty amazing and very unusual for there to be any kind of combination of agreement between exhibitors and studios, or maybe even exhibitors and studios. So we've got 5 companies coming together, all Fortune 100 companies, and they are in agreement and focused on a single vision for what it is that DCDC needs to do for this industry as an industry initiative. It is an open platform for all exhibitors and content providers, and all content providers and exhibitors. I'm supposed to speak up, I'm told, okay. Okay, so it's an open platform for everyone. Everybody gets treated the same. And the Deluxe EchoStar, as noted, has been our primary service provider from the very beginning. We've engendered a terrific working relationship with them and them with us, and more on that in a moment. The state-of-the-art network is driven by the KinCast software that is in their appliances that we use as the backbone of the network. And the business model is unique in that at the end of the day, everybody starts getting back money once the partners are repaid their initial capital investments. So we will actually rebate money to the users of the system in proportion to how much they have used the system over the course of time. So as noted, all the major content providers or customers in 70 features have been transmitted. Of the almost 1,300 sites, it's actually 1,292, I'm told, by Brad Jackson, who runs the NOC for us in Salt Lake City, Utah, which accounts for about 17,000 screens. 950 or more at this point have been enabled with satellite. That's almost 13,000 screens since we began. The first tranche, and it's important to talk about that put our installation schedule in terms of a tranche so that we could more rationally and reasonably figure out how to do the rollout and how to schedule which exhibitors when. Very important for us to create an orderly system and a rational system of doing that. So the first tranche has been AMC, Regal, and Cinemark, and National Amusements and Southern Theatres, as you saw. The second tranche will begin somewhere probably in the June timeframe now. And we're going to see an accelerated rollout, I think, for the rest of this year and into the next year. And the reason for that is, and I'm going to announce this here publicly for the first time, is that we've been fortunate enough to reach an agreement with Deluxe EchoStar to actually acquire their network and to reconfigure their network as a DC-DC network. So we will start doing that in the second tranche. So for those of you who are Deluxe EchoStar current customers, we will be talking to you about the best way to do that. So DCDC is a catalyst. I mean, this is probably, for me, the most important part of what it is that DCDC brings to the table long term, because ultimately we are a smart pipe, and we can act as a catalyst for the delivery of all kinds of different content by the exhibitors into their screens and into their spaces over the next several years. I think there's an opportunity for collaboration between the studios and the exhibitors to that end, both programmatically and marketing-wise. And, you know, I think it puts the exhibitors in the catbird seat, frankly, going forward, because they have the space that directly interfaces with their consumers. And the consumers are what drive the industry. And with that kind of collaboration, I think, on programmatic opportunities, I think we're only limited by our own imaginations, which is the last slide.
All right. Thank you, Randy. Next up, we have Tim Warner, who's going to talk about alternative content and how New Fathom will utilize the DCDC network to that end.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to see the turnout today. The last time we held a DCDC panel at CinemaCon, there was probably 30 people in the room because we were just sort of introducing the concept. And one rumor I'd like to dispel that Dan Feldman's been spreading out there, that I started in the business when sound came into the thing, and was after sound. Not far after, but it was after. But even with that, pedigree going back a long ways in the industry, this is the most exciting time to be in this business, because we've come together as an industry to solve one of the great technological barriers that have always plagued our industry. And we started that evolution when the industry got together to focus on how do we replace film, which was really an unsustainable technology platform because it was very costly, very cumbersome, and very, very difficult to distribute. It served the industry well for the first 100 years, but I don't know if we would have made it for another 100 and be the industry we are today if we hadn't made first the conversion to digital. And with digital, and I think the focus of our industry is that both from a studio standpoint and also from an exhibition standpoint, we've been saying to ourselves, how can we use technology to take cost out of the system, to enhance the experience to the customer, and also to get greater utilization of the theaters. And DCDC was first designed so that to take the cost out of to distribute film content, because film is always going to be the primary driver of the theatrical exhibition business, and the studios are doing just an outstanding job year after year, bringing with the creative talent in the industry today, bringing product to market. And I was just talking with one of the reporters, and she was asking me, where do I feel that the industry is at? I said, well, we had a record year in 2012, we had a record year in 2013, we're on a path for a record year in 2014, and 2015 and 16, which we get some insight into, look unbelievable. So we're all very, very fortunate to be in this here terrific industry. Although it dramatically lowers the content and the ease of content getting to the theaters, the thing it does for the theater exhibitors, it gives one-point access and content providers to thousands and thousands of screens. So it goes up to the satellite pushes us out to thousands and thousands of screens. And so, because even when we converted to digital, you still had to ship the DCP via FedEx or bus or some transportation device to get it to the theater, then you had to ship the DCP back. And so even though we got to digital, it was still a very cumbersome system to actually get content into the theater, and access to the theaters has always been an issue. And so DCDC, satellite distribution, really solves that access. But the other thing it's going to do for us and our studio partners, it's really going to open up the platform, not only for their films, but all the content studios provide. And in fact, I've been talking to a lot of the studios over these past few months or weeks and saying, hey, look, we're a great platform for your film, but there's a lot of content that you produce that would work very, very well over this platform. And it's not a new concept. We've been experimenting with it and testing it for probably the last 5 or 6 years. Probably our biggest success has been the Metropolitan Opera, but there's the potential in sports, the arts, classic films. We've, in fact, Cinemark has been working very closely with the studios to really bring back old films and into the theaters, and we're having a lot of success. That's now expanding throughout the industry. Concerts, special events, and then on a worldwide basis, the World Cup's coming up. I'm not saying it's going to play here in the U.S., but obviously we'd love to have it here in the U.S. in the theaters. But it is going to play in some of the global marketplaces, and then the arts, and we got a great example that's going to be following me, Fred Medina. But right now, alternative content is about 1% of the U.S. box office. In Europe, it's like 5 or 6%. And I think the potential, especially as we work with our studio partners to really open up access to to all their content in their pipelines, could grow to anywhere from 5 to 10% over the next few years. And so now that we got this platform in place, it's very important, both from that we all work together and continue to work together to figure out, well, what is the business model that we now go over that platform with? And that's the next phase. But if the way we've worked together and this, success we've had to date in, building the platform, I think building the business model will be difficult, but not impossible. And I think it's a real bright future, both for the film content and also for alternative content in theaters. And following me is a great example of a company that wasn't really playing in the theatrical space, the BBC, and Fred's going to talk about some success that they've had in the theatrical space and how they're looking at the theatrical space. But thank you, and I know we'll be having some questions and answer afterwards, but we've got a very, very bright future together now that we've solved all these here technological problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I was going to introduce Fred, but you kind of took my job. Little known fact, Sandra Bullock and George Clooney actually helped deploy the satellite that we use as precursor to their movie, just for training purposes. Fred Medina is going to talk about BBC and how they use theatrical network.
Thank you. I'd like to start with a quick video that gives you an idea, basically contextualize what I'm about to present to you. Can we go to that video, please?
It was the perfect love letter to the show.
Seeing all the doctors stand there looking toward the future, it's real beautiful. Success. I mean, we initiated the idea of Doctor Who as a television-only event, and as an afterthought, we introduced a cinema component. So my presentation is basically providing you a snapshot of how a cinema experience for fans, is an aggregate to the overall success of a campaign. But let me start with introducing who I am. I work for BBC Worldwide, which is the commercial arm of the largest running national broadcaster in the world. We've been in operation for over 90 years, and we invest on an annual basis about $2.4 billion a year in producing television content. And that adds, annually that adds to an archive of about 500,000 hours of content, which is the largest in the world. Our shows today are available in over 200 countries worldwide. Doctor Who, in particular, is the largest running sci-fi series in the world. We've been in production for about 50 years, and over the course of its production life, the BBC has responded on an ongoing basis to embrace and retain fans. Because in the reality is the retention of those core fans is really the most important aspect of our relationship with our viewers. The Doctor Who experience has gone beyond just a television event. There have been many commercial successes across this franchise. We've sold over 450,000 tickets to the Doctor Who live event, and we've sold over 10 million DVDs and about 8 million action figures. This is all for a television program. So about 4 months ago, we decided to do something that had never been done before. To celebrate the Doctor Who 50th anniversary episode, which is called Doctor Who, The Day of the Doctor. The event was going to be celebrated, the 50 years of this iconic show, but was also an opportunity to relaunch the brand, and particularly my territory, which is the Latin American region, and reintroduce it as this modern day opportunity for our partners and our key broadcasters. The objective was to increase brand recognition, engagement, audiences through multiple touch points for both consumers and our key partners. The plan was to take a UK-based initiative and roll it out globally. The anniversary episode was going to be simulcast both on television and cinema across the globe. The event happened on Saturday, on November the 23rd at 7:50 p.m. UK time. It was very challenging for us because we're a television content producer and we don't have the infrastructure to roll out these types of initiatives across cinema on a global level. So we partnered with Cinemark, the largest cinema operator in Latin America. We've been in conversations with Tim Warner and his organization for about 2 years to build an event that we believe could benefit both organizations. The challenge that we have is we don't have the marketing resources to build traffic and awareness. And we really needed to depend heavily on a fan-based initiative to increase the capacity and reach of the event to ensure that both the event had high visibility, but also created significant traffic into the Cinemark operations. So my organization is not structured to do this, and I basically improvised, and I used my channel and TV sales operations to execute this initiative. There's a lot of risk to this. There's a lot of risk in principally leaking details. It's a fan-based surprise, so we didn't really want this out in the market any time before it needed to be. The technology of the delivery of the content. In Latin America, we started with five theaters in 3 countries, and the delivery of those DCPs was a huge challenge. As a matter of fact, 5 months after the event, I still have DCPs stuck in Argentina in customs. So it's a challenge, and not structured appropriately. We had to improvise, and we relied heavily with Cinemark to help us execute on the event. It required 3 months of deployment, and about 50 staff members of BBC Worldwide in Miami, London, Los Angeles, Dallas, Sao Paulo, and Mexico City were involved in the execution of this event. It was a 60-minute episode that was encrypted on DCP, and it was sent to 48 cities and 9 Latin American countries. That's a bit of a contradiction to my first statement. It was 5 cities and 5 theaters in 3 cities. And I'll explain that in a second. Needless to say, the event was a global success. The episode received the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest ever simulcast of a TV drama. In its 50th anniversary, reached 80 million TV households. That's important, but what was most important is that over 500,000 tickets were sold for the theatrical screenings where fans were able to watch the episode in 3D. And the cinema component, which is the simulcast, never at any point in time cannibalized our TV viewing experience. On the contrary, it was an aggregate. It built excitement and greater visibility for the event. It was shown in 98 countries and screened in 1,500 cinemas worldwide. In Latin America, again, my territory, we pre-sold 25,000 tickets. Pre-selling was really important because although we've been in conversations with Tim and his organization for about a couple of years, there was a bit of doubt whether alternative content could actually build enough traffic and volume to in essence, build a space within the same weekend that Hunger Games was being premiered. So what was asked is, can we activate our fan base to respond and pre-purchase tickets to then enable us to increase the number of screens? So we went from 5 screens to 77 in a 2-week period. Fans responded. We had 65,000 fans for Doctor Who in Brazil who responded to the event. Again, limited marketing dollars, went social media, asked fans to respond. Would you like to see an event of this nature in 3D form in Cinemark? Yes, we would. What cities do you live in? Contact Cinemark. Pre-buy your tickets. We'll get it to you. So the fans responded. We built the ticket demand. The challenge was the delivery of the content in all these markets, the classification, importation of content, and all of that was really a huge challenge for us. So the net result, 8 countries, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Chile, Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, and Peru, and 1 independent theater not related to Cinemark in Uruguay. So a total of 9 countries in Latin America showcased the Doctor Who 50th anniversary. It's been dubbed in 15 countries, so this initiative was also repeated across many of the territories that BBC Worldwide operates on. The conclusion is Latin America will repeat this initiative. And properly executed, we believe that we can build exponential value to our fan base, excite our fans because it's a like-minded grouping of viewers that we can create longer-lasting retention and excitement around our premieres. We're not cannibalizing our TV sales initiative and the activities going on with both our broadcasters, partners, and our own channels. But rather, we have found this as an important part of a future brand building and fan building initiative. The challenge is, how do we execute efficiently and effectively when you're not structured like a studio? And this is where your technology that DCDC can actually benefit us moving forward in building specific branded opportunities for BBC Worldwide in Latin America through an efficient, effective delivery mechanism. And thank you very much.
Do we have any Doctor Who fans in the house? Not too many. I think you're not being honest. Secret fans. Next up, we have Noah Bergman from Universal, who's going to give us a perspective of DCDC from a content provider point of view.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. I'm going to take a step back, and I have no slides for you because I think I presented my perspective at 2 CinemaCons, 3 Show Easts, 1 Show West, and whatever was before that. I'd like to talk about my job and how DCDC can simplify my job, but also simplify the relationship that we have with exhibition. My job is very simple at Universal Pictures. I'm responsible for ensuring our content gets from a production environment to an exhibition environment in the most efficient and most effective way. And there's a generational change in how we're doing that started with digital cinema and continues in the DCDC world. So I'd like to focus on pure content distribution, on the ability to use technology. Am I getting feedback? To use technology efficiently to build a better business relationship between studios and exhibitors. So there's 3 precepts to DCDC and digital delivery via satellite that are most important to me. And the first one is efficiency. DCDC allows me as a content distributor to have a single point of departure and a single delivery process across the whole of the territory that I oversee. So when I am working with my post-production partners and my distribution partners, I have the ability to create a strategy and a mechanism with DCDC and with the expertise that someone like Deluxe EcoStar brings to the table and to really customize the way that I distribute content. DEH acts as a support mechanism to me as a studio in a way that's very effective when I need to understand which issues affect my distribution, triage those issues, and ensure that my content gets to screens in a timely manner so that you can play them out and we can all benefit from the infrastructure. Secondly, what DCDC has done is created an environment where I have tools that I can myself proactively track and manage my content. There's a DCDC web portal that's available to every customer of DCDC, be it on the distribution or the exhibition side, and it gives me real-time access to where my content is in the pipeline, where I have issues, and how I need to fix those problems, be it weather-related, be it delivery-related, be it an issue with the content itself. The goal of no black screens, the goal of not missing play times is imperative to me for the feature films that I distribute and for alternative content that studios such as myself are looking to get into and that other content providers are already providing to your bigger theaters. So efficiency for me is a key to DCDC, an environment where you have a utility that allows the community to jointly build tools that benefit both sides is very advantageous in that space. I think secondly, and maybe least importantly, oddly enough, is cost savings. To me, broadcast delivery obviously is all about scale. The more scale we get in the network, the bigger the platform, the more efficient it gets, the bigger rebates we get as customers, and the more we can reinvest those savings back into our businesses in terms of improvements, in terms of other technologies, and in terms of the kind of content that Universal and every other content provider is producing. And then the third is flexibility. In a 35 millimeter world, we had limited flexibility. A film print is a film print, a broken reel is a broken reel, and there wasn't really much that you could do about it other than wait for a replacement. In a digital world, a hard drive has to get to your site. If there's an issue with that content, you don't have the ability to replace it in a readily available way. What DCDC does as the only adaptive system in the marketplace, from my perspective, is it does three things. It allows for new platforming strategies to be tested by the marketplace together. When DCDC distributes content, we distribute content to everyone on that platform. So as we as distributors and you as exhibitors evaluate the performance of a film, DCDC allows me to much more proactively and much more aggressively identify where I can exploit that content and grow that pie based on the performance of that specific piece of content. Secondly, it allows me to correct mistakes and correct issues. In the event that we book a film with an exhibitor and for some reason that booking confirmation doesn't get to our vendor, in the old way of doing things, it would take a certain amount of time to deliver a hard drive, and you would, in essence, almost imperatively miss shows. In this world, the content sits at the exhibitor site. I have a very limited window in which I can get content to you and you can get it to screen. With DCDC, that window is 1 hour. If you're a DCDC customer and you need a booking, and it's agreed between the content provider and exhibitor to share that content with the customer, it can be done in a 1 hour period. I book it, DCDC unlocks it, you see it, you can play it. So it creates a huge amount of flexibility to fix issues. And lastly, DCDC in my mind is the first incumbent system that allows me to grow very efficiently with new technologies. Over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, and maybe even sooner than that, there will be technologies in the marketplace that may be more efficient than satellite, maybe complementary to satellite, or maybe disruptive to it. And from my perspective, DCDC as a platform and the way that we have designed it creates ultimate flexibility. DCDC server can receive IP lines so if you're using terrestrial delivery solutions, it can receive satellite distribution, it can receive hard drive backup. It creates the platform upon which we can really grow as an industry, the platform upon which we can test technology in a very controlled environment, and then we can adapt that technology together, because in a way, everyone owns DCDC. So the decision of what DCDC looks like in 1 year or 3 years or 5 years is the decision of the customer base. Obviously, the 5 partners who put the money up to get DCDC off the ground had to structure it in a specific way. But as content develops, as alternative content becomes a piece of this business in a more meaningful way, as advertising content and other types of content evolve, the model will change again. We'll all be here in a few years and we'll be talking about the new DCDC or the next DCDC. But having the platform in place, from my perspective, makes it easier for me to move that content to you, to test that content with you, and then to exploit it in the most proactive way that we possibly can. So with that, I'll turn it back to you. To Brian.
Thank you, Noah. I'm glad we were able to create a multi-million-dollar platform to make your job easier. Next up, Kelly O'Connor is going to talk about Warner Brothers' perspective on how to use the DCDC network beyond just film distribution.
So marketing campaigns are rarely stunted because there's not good ideas. There's plenty of good ideas. So what holds them back is basically time or money. Do we have the time to do it efficiently? How do we reach the audiences with the budget that we have? And the DCDC network offers vast and economical solutions to enhance in-theater marketing campaigns. Marketing consumption has changed drastically in the past decade with the advent of the internet. Especially so for motion pictures, I think. Our consumers are used to surfing the net and they're looking for those special pieces of featurettes and things like that. They're very, very savvy. They're looking for something that feels unique to them and personal and something that's going to resonate and help them make their movie-going decisions. Studios and exhibitors are looking for ways to break through the clutter and to reach those audiences and drive the attendance into the theaters. There's more and more behind-the-scenes pieces and featurettes that are readily available, but it's been difficult to get some of those onto your screen because of the costs associated with them. So how can we deliver the flexible abilities of your personal devices to your big screens? Well, DCDC is the perfect solution. You can be sophisticated and target directly. It's got architecture that provides an economical solution and immediate results for marketing opportunities now and those to come. One of the things that I took away yesterday from the great presentations that Senator Dodd and John Fithian gave were two things. The folks that are going to your movie theaters are using devices. They're used to having immediate results and an appetite that they can satisfy by searching for special things that don't feel as static maybe. And those same people that are going to your theaters are getting increasingly more diverse. So today, we come out with a trailer campaign or a few trailer campaigns and one-sheet looks, but it hasn't been economical to have much diversity to those campaigns in your theaters. DCDC is going to offer a fantastic solution. Starting with trailers, I see a future scenario where demo targeting is the trailer placement strategy of the future, similar to network TV. Think about opportunities to customize marketing to a specific audience and reach appropriate audiences, for example, based on time. You could place the Lego trailer on the matinees of The Hobbit, and then for your night shows, you could switch it out to the 300 trailer and be able to more appropriately reach the audiences that are in attendance at those times. You could have a very edgy version of a raunchy comedy trailer on your midnight shows or your late night shows, and then you can switch to a softer version of that trailer during the daytime hours when the attendance is going to need something a little bit different. Your audiences are more diverse than ever. Demo targeting is an effective way to market both specifically and regionally. Imagine we could have a trailer with a music cue that's going to resonate to Southern audiences, but perhaps the same trailer would play much better on the coasts if it had a different cue. So this gives us some ability to do all of that. I think one of the things that's the best news for exhibition is that DCDC is going to make it that much easier to deliver materials that are customized with exhibitor messages, from talent greetings and introductions to end cards that have your logos and can help promote your premium or large format experiences, ticketing information, even work with your frequency programs when we're working with you to develop promotions on one of our films with your frequency program. Satellite delivery is the nimble solution that we need to make these things a reality. So it's going to be better than ever before. beyond trailers and your screens and things that, all the opportunities that exist there, I think that there's other opportunities to use this pipeline. As the digital one-sheet footprint gets bigger and bigger, we'll be able to use that same thing to roll out campaigns that have normally been printed, and the printing costs and shipping costs are very, very expensive and they take time. So we'll be able to deliver to your theaters on a more rapid basis new campaigns. And again, going back to the diversity, potentially we're going to be able to deliver different pieces of art that are going to resonate more with your audiences. Other promotional assets are just waiting to come, you know, whether it's games or who knows, I mean, even virtual standees. Today, we can only make standees to provide to a portion of the theaters out there. But if we had a virtual asset that we could send, that you could use to project, or other solutions that the future may bring, we could help get those marketing pieces into your theaters easier than ever. I think one of the most exciting pieces about DCDC is the other opportunities that will exist to enhance the movie-going experience, you know, to really help bring moviegoers to where the action is. Bring things to them like red carpets or fan events, different special things. And today, as you know, most of those special events happen directly before the movie's released, and we simply don't have the time generally to put those experiences onto DCPs and ship them all around the country in order to really make it effective. But with DCDC, there's no reason that we can't get opportunities like this in front of your audiences for the opening weekend of a big film. So, what's next? You know, as they said in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. And the pipeline is there. The ideas are certainly there and generating. It'll be very interesting to see what is next and how we are able to use this really effective tool to market our films in all of your theaters over the next 5 years, 10 years. We are only limited by our imaginations. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Next up, we have Ron Krueger II, who's going to give us an exhibitor's perspective on DCDC and alternative content.
Thank you, Brian. I guess I picked the wrong week to get out of my cigar habit. I'm on the back end of a cold here, so my apologies on my voice. So Southern Theaters represents a mid-size theater operator, about 500 screens. So I wanted to give you that perspective in our partnership with DCDC. And got to take a step back, much like Noah described. We've got into this business, or got into this partnership really from a standpoint of finding efficiencies, consolidating all those potential dishes that were going to be on our roof, as well as primarily reducing our film delivery costs. Those were the primary opportunities we saw ahead. So the alternative content and the great ideas that Kelly spoke about, great opportunities that are there in the future. But let me walk you through kind of a bit of the history for those of you who haven't signed up, and a bit of evangelizing of what DCDC can bring to you. So when you've got a potential partner negotiating a contract that they're taking on the majority of the risk, providing all the hardware, picking up all the cost, and they potentially down the road are going to be paying you something, you wonder where the leverage is in the contract negotiation. So other than worrying about some performance concerns, dark sites, and things like that, and then where we would fit into the overall rollout, given the big three partners and having a mid-sized circuit in there, wanted to make sure that we had our fair share place in that rollout schedule. Not much to push through, so working with Randy and his team, it was pretty smooth sailing on the contract side and had those additional points added. But then you get a contract done, and then you're waiting for a schedule. And I got to give Randy and his team credit there as well. They weren't ready to deploy. They wanted to make sure the technology was working. We wanted it sooner. They said, wait, got to make sure everything is fine. And once that green light was there, we got that schedule, and they've delivered to that schedule with under 40 sites to be deployed. 40 sites potentially there. Over half have been deployed, and the communication through that entire process has been fantastic. With new technology, there's always the hiccup, but the communication has been in advance of the hiccups that have occurred, and none of us like surprises. And when they let us know the problem's coming before we know it's there, that's always a good thing. In terms of alternative content, I'd like to view ourselves as exhibitors that have different regional coverage and different regional interests. And our footprint in the southern parts of the U.S. there happens to be a strong SEC, football, basketball influence and desire, a strong NASCAR viewing desire. So how do we transfer and get the content providers out there, or their enablers, to complement, potentially shift some eyeballs back into our theater locations? I think there's been some proven tests that we can be those facilities and be those exciting places to have those types of events, but we need the partners out there. And with the infrastructure that DCDC has built for live and taped events, I think the opportunity is there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. We're going to go ahead and open up for questions at this time. We have a couple of microphones in the center of the room that you can step up to and ask your question. And while you're thinking about what you want to ask, I'll actually ask the panel a question or two while we're waiting. All right, so I would ask, getting all the major studios, Randy mentioned it, all the major studios and even the mini majors to agree on something is a fairly unique thing to achieve. And I just wanted to ask the panel how you went about doing that.
Very carefully and over a long time period. I think it took engendering a lot of trust in all of the potential customers that we talked to. That number one, we could do what we said we were going to do. And not only that we could do it, but that we in fact would do it. And that took some time. And I think eventually, over the course of that time, we actually, when we got into the actual contract negotiations, I think it became clear to them that who we were as business people, that we really did mean what we said, and we were going to do what we said we would do. And I think that's been borne out since the beginning. Yeah.
I would add to that a lot of us wear two hats. Tim oversees his organization, is also on the board of directors of DCDC. So the communication between the owning partners of DCDC and the customer partners of DCDC had to be very transparent. So all of the agreements that the owning partners sign are cohesively the same as the one that the customer partners sign in terms of being a distributor or an exhibitor. So it created a level of trust internally that I think we could then communicate very effectively to the folks that we wanted to join this network and join us in trying to create this dynamic new way of sort of jointly owning distribution as part of our business.
And I would add that, and I think Ron really hit it on the head, is that a lot of people had a hard time believing that we were just trying to create an industry utility that was going to service all the industry and be an open platform and a transparent platform. I think once people got over that hurdle and saw there were no hidden agendas and that we were just focused on trying to come together as an industry to do the right thing for the overall industry and not for our individual companies or individual personalities. And the good news for everybody is that the system works flawlessly. And I think all the studios would attest, and the exhibitors that have experienced it, they've, because I'm not a technological person, I was more the, the business aspects of this, but Randy and his team have put together an incredible, platform that's really going to serve the industry well.
Okay, great. Next question. Oh, we have a question?
I do. I'm wondering what the independent film producers, how are they going to play into this incredible system that you all have created? It sounds to me like you've got all the studios wrapped up. How does the independent film producer use this system?
They become a customer, first of all, and they are welcome to become a customer. The platform is open to all content providers of every stripe. So they have to decide what their distribution pattern is going to be to see if satellite distribution will make sense at all for them, because there are costs attendant to that. But to the extent that they get past that hurdle, then there is no impediment whatsoever.
Well, and probably one thing that's important, and again, I'll let the technical people respond, is that satellite is dependent upon distributing to a much wider platform to become cost efficient. And so that's why it was incredibly important that we come together as an industry in order to get the benefits of scalability and to be able to distribute over a real broad platform.
Okay. My next question is, Randy mentioned the announcement, the agreement with Deluxe to take over their satellite footprint. That I think is a pretty large thing to happen. Can you expand on how you think that impacts the project and going forward and DCDC overall?
Well, yeah. So that as I said, Joe Hart and his team at Deluxe, who've been just terrific partners of ours since the beginning of this whole process, has and we started talking about this. I don't know, Joe, 6 months ago, maybe something like that. And it became clear that it was one of those deals where 1 + 1 really equals 8 in terms of what it would do both for DCDC, Deluxe EchoStar, and frankly for the entire industry, because it clarifies positions. We were constantly, both of us, getting questions about, okay, so what is Deluxe EchoStar position? What is DCDC position? Let's see, Deluxe, you're distributing DCDC to us, but we're also your customer. How does that work exactly? So this really rationalizes the marketplace, and I think makes the roles a whole lot clearer. It was from on the economic point of view, I mean, it was pretty easy also, because we were able to from our point of view, from the DCDC point of view, lower the cost of installation. The effective cost of installation over the course of the 699 sites that are currently satellite enabled in the Deluxe EchoStar network. So it was pretty easy.
I've got a question. What about outside of the US? Have you got any views on that yet, or is it too early to talk about that?
Well, we're big advocates of it. Obviously, speaking on behalf of Cinemark, and we're working with the studios and our fellow exhibitors in Latin America to build a similar, type of. It might not be the exact model, but a similar model that would be adapted to Latin America, and I got to presume that the Australian exhibitors or the European exhibitors, that everybody's going to look at the platform and see how efficient it is and how productive it is and the kind of access it creates, to where I think it will become a global model. Now, to Randy's point, in the U.S., it did take us some time to work through the model and to work through all the various relationships, to get it done. But now that we've got the model created and identified the type of technology that we need, and the type of contrast we need between the studios and the satellite systems and the content providers and the exhibitors, they can take that model because it's a very transparent system, and have access to that model, and I would like to think it's going to become the model for the entire world myself.
Yeah, I would just add, on the technology side of things, the KenCast guys, as they've become to be known on the inside of DCDC, have been great technological partners too. They are constantly upgrading their software, giving us new capabilities that we've asked for faster than we thought maybe they would even be there. So that's been something I think that's been attractive to the international scene as well, because they don't have those kinds of relationships right now.
Do we get a discount on our next order now?
I certainly hope so.
One additional point. Installation of this equipment at exhibitor sites it's capital intensive. So as much as we would like to turn the switch and have everyone deployed tomorrow, we believe that it will be a rapid deployment. We believe that the DEH agreement with DCDC really fast forwards our ability to move the domestic market. And what that will do is it'll allow us as partners to address those other markets that do have the potential to build this type of platform. And Latin America and Europe and Australia, there's a lot of efficiency in those markets and having a single point of distribution into them.
And your job will get even easier.
Right.
Go ahead.
From an exhibition perspective, is this initiative applicable, and more than that, is it appropriate and beneficial for everyone from the large chains down to an independent operator with a single screen, for example?
I think we've signed an agreement with the Cinema Buying Group, which represents, and I don't know if Bill Campbell's here, but it represents the smaller exhibitors in the U.S. The model, I think, takes it down to like a 3-screen, and you have to have digital, and of course the theater management system, to handle the technology. And so it is envisioned that it would go down to a really small level of a triplex with digital and a theater management system.
Yeah, I would just add to that, because it's a question that we often get asked, and obviously it's just got to make economic sense for everybody to do that, and we can't do everybody all at the same time. So we've had, as Tim said, that's been our entry level position. On the other hand, what we've come to understand is that there are a number of operators out there who may have less than 3 screens, but may have a TMS and may have 50 or more, may exhibit 50 or more movies a year. Well, we can do those economically. So, I think we would look at those as well as the 3 screens and a TMS model.
I have a question about alternative content. Do you envision that the providers will be able to equally send their signals to theaters, rather than now it's rather fragmented and restrictive? Will all theaters in the system have equal access to the alternative product?
Yes.
Yes, I mean, you know, the network, you know, obviously a content provider is ultimately in control of who they're going to distribute to. And so, although it's an open network, you got to think of DCDC strictly as a industry utility or platform. It really isn't designed to get into the business dealings between the content providers and the exhibitors. You know, that's still the same type of relationship that exists today, that a content provider comes to an understanding with the exhibitor, and then they determine where their content is going to go. DCDC is just a platform they go over with. It has nothing to do with the business dealings between the two entities, is how I would think of it.
Yeah, I think that's right. We're just a smart pipe that delivers.
And so you'd still have to negotiate with a content provider. Yeah. Yes.
Sort of as a content provider, it's really an alternative content provider. We're looking to build relationships with our audiences and fans. So it just happened to be that Cinemark had the largest footprint in the region that enabled us to execute the Doctor Who initiative in the short period of time that we had to work with. But long-term strategies for us, at least in the Latin American territory, is to have a broad range of relationships across the region, and it may just be small operators or large-scale operations like Cinemark. So the ambition is about reaching fans, and that's really the determining factor.
Okay, it's still a little cryptic. I represent a circuit, a mid-range circuit as well in the Midwest, Warenberg, and we just wanted to know down the road if we'd have equal opportunity for all the product that comes down. And so I guess what you're saying is this is just a pipe, and that there are really no answers. We'll have to see what happens.
Well, and to get that, that isn't the role of DCDC to get into your relationship between the studios or alternative content providers. Again, we're just, up here today, we're just speaking on behalf of the platform itself. And so each exhibitor, whether they're larger or smaller exhibitors, are still going to have to enter into their own negotiations with content providers.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to ask a question to Randy. It's just regarding basically the content, would be stored, to some extent at a data center before it's transferred. Who's responsible if there's any breach of, security in regard to the content? I mean, it's an issue that I'm sure you looked at legally, and I just want to understand, because there's security breaches at a very high level in America, and it makes us a bit concerned that, what may happen is a lot of very valuable work which has been put in by producers may be compromised. So is that something you looked into seriously, and what's the roadmap on that, really?
Yeah, of course we have. We don't touch any content. DCDC doesn't touch any content that is not a fully encrypted DCP. So, from the get-go, anything we touch is going to have to be unlocked by the content provider with a key at the source. But when we transmit the data, it is wrapped in several different kinds of encryption as it goes up over the satellite and comes down again. So it's very heavily encrypted.
That's fine. The second question really is, with the new production, it's going to be in a lot, higher data, in terabytes probably, with the high frame rates and basically 3D. And I mean, I know Peter Jackson's work, because it's gone, and also Iron Man 3 went into terabytes when it came to data.
Yes.
So, I mean, are you dealing with EchoStar in a way where you're going to make sure that this is not going to be an issue in the future? Because the transfer of data may be something that needs to be looked at in the future, because the volumes may be a lot higher than normal. So.
Yeah. I think the new normal is already here. At Christmas time, we had 8 different films. Several of them were late in delivery to us that, stressed the system. And there were a couple of films over 1 terabyte. So we've got 12 terabytes of storage on the cache server at each site. It's RAID storage, so it's about a little over 8 usable, I think. And in terms of transmission time, the laws of physics are the laws of physics, and that's what it takes. So, what we like to say is we sort of have this hybrid network. I mean, there are times when we might have to take, if one of the films has 7 different versions, as one of them did, we might have to take a couple of those versions and send them by hard drives to some sites, and send the rest by satellite. Unless, of course, we're in a position where we have several days to send several terabytes worth of stuff. So.
Yeah, and actually, I'll just add to that real quickly. The DCDC network it's a 2 satellite capability, so there's actually a second satellite that can provide additional capacity for overflow periods for large films. And we did distribute The Hobbit over DCDC, and although it was an experience, it did work. I think we've actually reached the end of our time. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I hope you're as excited about DCDC now as I am, and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.